Hi everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for moving around for us. I just have two announcements before I pass it over to my team, my amazing team. First, it was pointed out to me that on the certificate of training, yesterday afternoon it says the sessions were from 3:45 to 4:45 when it was actually 2:45 to it was 2:30.
It's 3 to 4:45.
3 to 4. Okay, so if you need that, you can correct it yourself. 3 to 4:45. If you need that initial or something, so just make sure you get credit for it. I'll be around. Just want to make sure you got that. And then second, remember that survey you got in your mailbox, your email box, yesterday right before lunch? I really encourage you to fill that out. It's the survey that we sent to families originally, and that was talked about yesterday. So fill that out to see what that was like, what we were asking, and that'll be really useful. Yes? The afternoon workshops were from 3 to 4:45, and that is incorrect on your certificate of training. So you can fix that. 3 to 4:45. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Dot.
Okay, guys, I don't usually use this thing, so let me know if I misuse it, please. So I'm assuming, since I see smiles at the back of the room, that you can hear me. Welcome to this next session. Somebody came out to the room yesterday and said Denise was the best yet. And I'm sorry I missed her, but I can affirm that I'm sure she was the best of everything. We really appreciate the fact that she was able to come today and share with us from her vast experience. And today, for this session, we're going to ask you to be the trainers with each other. And so we have you set up in tables around the room, and I want to check your table to be sure that you have somewhere on your table a sheet that looks like this. If you don't, let Ella know. And that somewhere on your table you have a little gadget that looks like this. You know what happens when your electricity goes out and your internet is off and you're not able to finish things for a conference? You get to the hotel and the only thing you have in your bag is double-sided tape. So this is 4 little items that are together with double-sided tape. So and somewhere along here you'll be able to pull them apart and use them as 4 different items. Sorry about that, but we just roll with life as it happens, right? So that's where we are this morning. So this morning the team would like to, as you may have picked up on our theme today, yesterday we talked in great detail about the issues of systemic racism and the issues that were happening around the state in the business of child welfare. Today we're talking about how all of us who are involved in child welfare have a role in advocating for the changes that we think are needed and that we'd like to see. So today, this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about how to advocate for the needs that you have and what kinds of things you might need or expect to do in that advocacy. So that's why we call it self-advocacy, and that's where we're starting. The first thing I want you to do is going to be a discussion at your table. So we want to be sure that everybody is at a table where you're not just talking to yourself, or not just talking to somebody that you know so well that you already know their answers. So if you're in a setting that's not like that, stay where you are. If you think that everybody at your table knows you so well that they're going to answer for you, get up and move to another table that nobody knows you. But I think that as I look around the room, you're pretty well sparse with that kind of information. So, but feel free to move if you think everybody knows you. But if not, stay together. Veronica, are you two back there needing to move?
We're gonna join that table.
Okay, that sounds
I
great.
don't see one of my teammates at that table, so
Okay.
Here. I couldn't tell before.
You couldn't tell. So you might need a chair, but
Oh, yeah.
You can handle that. Good, so we got everybody coming together at a table where you can talk. A little challenging when you've got 10 size tables and only 4 or 5 people to be able to hear each other, but we'll hope that you can directly talk to each other so that we can work that out. So our first exercise, keeping in mind that we want to talk specifically about child welfare in Ohio. And we want to talk specifically about some of the issues that you're experiencing that you'd like to see changed, or that you think might be good for the sake of families to change. And those are the things that we are wanting to look at as we're looking at self-advocacy. So first of all, we're going to define what self-advocacy is. So on the table you have that sheet. That's only just for a reminder so you know what you're talking about. Because I know I've been at these table talks before, and somebody gives you a topic to talk about, and all of a sudden it goes wild, and you're not at all talking about the topic. If that happens, okay, it happens, but we would prefer that you talk about the topic, if at all possible. Keep yourself centered on that. So that's why you have this little sheet to remind you that this is our topic. We're talking about self-advocacy, and we want to know what it is. So the next thing is your tape together. If somebody would take that apart, you should have four what do you call those things? 4 things. Yeah, it looked like this. And would you take it apart and pass them around so that at least 4 people at your table get those? Give you a moment to do that. I don't know. If you rip the paper, no problem. As long as you can read what's on it. Now, for the person or whoever's got those closest to you, pass those 4 papers around to a different person at your table. So it doesn't have to be you, but 4 people at your table should have one. So pass them around so people have them. Now, if you want to take notes, use this. Have somebody be your note taker if you want. That's up to your table. So if you want to take notes. So here's the process. Take the four, whatever, what do you call these, slips? Take the 4 slips. The person who has one read it, and then everybody else at the table answer it. That table back there is being a little noisy, so they didn't hear the instructions.
They're being disrupted.
They're disruptors in general. So take, so that everybody, so that 4 people at your table have this, not the same person. Read one of them, and then answer that question. These are the 4 things that we are suggesting you need if you're going to be an advocate in the child welfare system. If you're going to advocate for yourself and the other folks that are in the system. These are the 4 things. So for example, the first one might be, you can take them any order you want, but the first one might be, if you're going to be an advocate, you have to have the ability to, let me find the first one here. You have to have the ability to identify and advocate for one's needs and wishes. If you don't know the needs and wishes within your role in the system, there's hardly a process to advocate for it. So you will take a statement like that, and then on the table, you will discuss whether or not you know the needs and the wishes of your role in child advocacy. So if you're a foster parent, what's a foster parent? If you're a birth parent, what is a birth parent? If you are a kinship person, what's a kinship? If you are a staff person that wasn't working any of those family roles, what are your needs to advocate for in the child welfare system? Is this clear?
Yes.
Y'all look kind of puzzled. Maybe you're just tired and saying she's putting it back on you, what's she doing? But if you understand, go for it. We're going to give you about 5 minutes on, 3 minutes on each question, so you don't have a long time. So keep those questions moving around. Yeah, all
What is one? I guess in my role, I think
well, you deal with the child, you deal with your role. I like to identify and advocate for what you identify. So it would be, well, I guess we can switch it so that it could be the child, but I think it's more looking at your role as an advocate.
I have a lot of issues. The first thing that stood out is for foster parents. The ability to identify and advocate for one's needs and wishes. So the first need that I think of that a foster parent needs, and I always hear them complain about, is that they have little kids under 5 which they have support. Because a lot of foster parents are hesitant, working foster parents are hesitant because child care is so expensive. Right now, Franklin County doesn't offer any sort of financial help with child care. So you have to choose between having issues with your job or taking a child under 5. But I wouldn't even know where to start with advocating for foster parents.
I do. Communication. We had and it was really hard because trying to deal with the counselor. The counselor able to bring visit the house, the court advocate, the school, their timing. This is hard to do work. They decide, well, they tell you you can make a choice when they can come out. But that's not really how it goes. They tell you when they're going to come out. But the thing is, communication is hard.
See, so it sounds like you're talking about coordinating schedules of people coming to that house.
And them to communicate with me how we're working with this
How you're
child.
going to do this. But I'm actually referring to working parents who cannot afford to pay $1,000 in child care
We had that.
and then go to work.
They said we make too much.
Right.
Have somebody else's kid.
Exactly, and that's where the issue is you can't afford, you can't qualify for title 20.
Yes.
So that means now you're going to have to pay out of pocket for children that are not your kids,
And it's going to be more.
and it's going to be more than the per diem, and it's a problem. So you have a lot of kids sitting in here because they don't want, who wants to take on their financial burden? And so that leaves that the kids sitting there.
I noticed that you said this was, you were thinking about the foster parents. When I think about it, I think about the foster parents and the primary parents because, you know, we deal with all of the group of parents, the primary parents, the foster parents, the adoptive parents, kinship parents. But I think about the primary family because those primary families have the same issue.
That's right.
They are losing their children oftentimes because they can't afford child care. What do you do if you have to go to work, you can't afford the child care? Do you leave the child home sometimes maybe by themselves? If you can't find someone else to watch them, you know, people have begun to,
Child care piece is huge.
yeah, and our people are not, African American people are not like we used to be. We used to be grounded in a community where you had family all around you. A lot of times people have moved to different states and they don't have the same kind of family situations for support that we used to have. So that's more often than not, you have those families, like I said, whose children wind up, they get an allegation, they're taken.
Right.
That's not what you call it, allegation, but I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it right now.
They just have neglect charges for something like
Right,
that.
exactly. So this would affect not only the foster parents, well, it would affect maybe all of the parent groups.
Kinship.
Yes.
Now I can't take this child because I'm on a fixed income. I need
I
to
don't
go
get the money to be able to do it.
but I need childcare.
Here's the part that I know, and I get a phone call. Even though I am a rescue person, I was placement, but that is not for me. Right. That is too hard. Here's number one. They call me to say the kids need a bed. And since I am kin, they're not paying me, or they go and say that they'll get a check later. The biggest problem that we saw was the brown parents got to file taxes on their kids, but you have them the whole time. Then you have to file and you have to protest.
I ran into that before.
Oh my God, they should have them sign something when your kid is placed in child care. You should sign a note saying that you would not file on these kids right here. There should be something in place because then it's away from us.
So you're telling me that as foster parents, you need to file. You need to put those children on their income
But the
tax.
birth families are doing this.
Birth family already did it, don't have to get it all.
Yeah, that's a
That's a big problem.
Yeah,
You know, it's been years since I fostered, but
That was a big problem.
That's always going to happen now.
But she only got that $300 a month, and the birth parent was getting it. And then she was getting food stamps.
Yeah, I was going to.
We don't qualify for food stamps.
So they're banking on you'll never clash because it'll never come out.
They don't think
Because they know right.
And then I think this is a big thing for me too. I think there's a difference between placement and rescue. I am a rescue. You're a placement. They qualify that kid on a rate. Right. Mine was just a flat rate. But yet and still, yet and still, when I got a placement, they did not rate these kids right. I had to find out the hard way. You give me the worst you can. It's
pay you the least amount
It's that.
because they have a rating system for the kids.
That's not fair.
They have a rating system for the kids that tells you which category. Right.
3 or 4.
And the higher up the tier goes, the more you get for that kid. And it's based off of the child's, supposedly the child's behavior, or the
Mental
child.
or medical. It's like level 4 is like medical needs, level 3 is like
Mental health
mental health.
We had a 4-year-old that was off the hook, and they said $25 a day. But the other two,
And this was something that you weren't privy enough at the beginning to know that that was something that you had to advocate for.
this is the problem.
Okay.
Even though they send you a layout of how the kid is, it wasn't true. One, I believe they do it because somebody, I know that this child right here is fought again, that he's sexual problems or whatever. I'm not telling you all that, but you find it out once the child gets to your house. It's different. And they had this child rated.
So you can have your levels reassessed.
Do you know how hard it was to do that? They send it.
So help me understand this. You say when the child comes to you, they tell you the behaviors and the problems, or they don't? They tell you.
They tell you some. I did not know
Some
that
of
the girl had been raped ever since she was in the diaper because she had split personality. So she can move forward 3 different things. And then she goes, Miss Johnson, Ella told me I got to kill you, Mr. Doe. She's 4 years old. I got this stuff on the court. I take her to the counselor, told the counselor. She go, oh, she's being used. It's going to be more.
Well, something came out every day.
Every day it was something
That is a
different.
really good
And it
one.
was scary.
That is a really good
She's
one
still over
for.
here.
She shouldn't have been here. like,
I don't
they
talk
should have
loud.
been together. They should have been together.
No.
But he was working third grade.
So this is what they did to us. I had a total of 3 kids. I have the video. These kids were sexually abused so bad that the stepmother put him on his brother's lap, hold his hands up, take a belt, and whoop his pocket. He couldn't take no more. When you come to my house, you're protected. And I told him, I said, look, you would never be abused in this area. I didn't know Corona had it. I could not go into the visiting where his mama and his other sister were. When he got in there, she stomped him in his head. She stomped him like she always did. When he got back in the car, he didn't say anything. But by the time he got home, he couldn't take no more abuse. So I became all these bees. I lied because he got abused when I told him he wasn't going to get abused.
Oh,
But I could not go. I did not know this. The children's services, they watched it.
they watched that happen?
I got all the paperwork. I think was it the sibling was doing abuse, but the one that watches over the kids while they visit,
They didn't.
she just sit there and look. You know what she knows now? Kids are abusive to each other. She did not stop that abuse. So what happened when he came to my house? There was 6, 5, and 4. When the 5-year-old got to my house, he lost it. I mean, I'm telling you that video. He go, Miss Teresa, you're a liar. I'm gonna take your house. I'm gonna take your home. Mr. Duff, go get the keys. This is he just went New Jack City. You don't get your house no more. You a bee. You a liar. I'm gonna drive the car. And then it was
Just a reminder, you're on your last 3 minutes, so move along.
Look, my whole time I'm like,
to know that they knew this, didn't tell me. I think I have a right to know what these kids are.
Yes, you do.
So I can handle it.
But, and the point here is that these are the issues that you are pointing out to us, that you need to know, that you need to advocate for yourself.
Yes,
You need to advocate for yourself because you needed better information from them about what was going on with the child, and so that you could provide more adequately for that child's care. So,
period. It was just so bad. They would beat so bad. I would beat them.
Yeah.
So I can relate. I didn't get mad, you know, when he went over there cussing and I was all these things and stuff. You know why? Because I knew it was at the end of the story. When you get tired, you get back up and try again. When you're fed up, you make a change. That's when somebody gets hurt. And he had made a change. I'm not taking this anymore. He said, I got the devil in me and it ain't leaving. I'm going to kill all y'all. He said, I got it on tape. And even bringing it to children's services and putting it down for them to look, they turn a blind eye to it. Yeah, the police had to come in. He's 5.
where did they get him from? Your house?
My house, I couldn't take it. He gave the kids that night.
Caseworker came back. Because he was that bad. He wouldn't get power. He wouldn't get the caseworker control. So they brought the ambulance.
The fireman came out, he jumped on top of the fire truck. He still hurt you, I don't know what. Even though I kept telling her this kids have a problem. She wouldn't listen, but when she came to get that little boy out of there, it took her 2 hours to get him. And there were level. Hello. Hello. Then she tells me, this is the part that really makes me angry. She tells me, they've been abused, so you're going to have more problems. I'm not getting more money, but I'm going to get more problems. And then
You should
lie
get
on
more
the
money
application.
and you should get more training and more support.
Right. If you had told me what's coming in my house, I would have handled it differently.
Yeah, you would have been able to handle it because you still could have, I don't want to say for you, but maybe in my mind, for me, had I had that situation with that child, I still could have worked with that child and not have
well,
had
also
to,
consider this was your first placement too.
yeah,
But I've had
So-
rest of kids.
But I'm saying for placement.
right.
So that really wasn't even wise to
So that's what I'm
take
saying, for
children
training.
with that many needs.
And I put it
And put them
down.
as a first time.
Yeah.
They should have went to a foster
They've been kicked out of
home
foster parents
who had that experience.
But they was kicked out for
A
a season.
seasoned foster parent.
Well, they know I can handle it. I could have handled it, but I need to know what I'm handling. It's like being sick. Once
Well,
you know
that's what
you're
we're
sick
talking
of,
about here. We're advocating for your own needs, for your needs, and knowing what you needed to advocate for. You
There
didn't
you
know
go. I did not
until he
know.
came into your home, and then when you found out and you tried to report it, then you found out that, okay, this is what I need to be advocating for.
And see, agencies do need to be more sensitive on the level of care, the experience of the foster parent as far as how many placements they've had, the types of placements they've had. Because if they would have traumatized, if they would have done that to us as our first, like if we would have started at respite and then our first placement was 3, like that's almost level 3 kids at level 3, we would have not have done any more. They would have lost the family. Or we would have just did respite only. You know what I mean? Like they would have lost us as a replacement by not by giving us too much.
I went back to rest.
Well, that is another reason that we need, that's another issue that we can look at in terms
That's
of
an agency.
having, advocating for more families, advocating what Denise was talking about, advocating for families to be involved and to remain foster families, because those are the issues that do cause you to lose your home.
It does.
You know,
And that's what we were just talking about.
and you don't get the support, plus you don't get any support from them to continue on.
Because
You
she
know.
did, I mean, the little girl was real smart. She said, I said, did you tell her about wanting to kill us and about you got 50 people in your head? She said, all I got to do is tell her I want to color, and you just go color. One thing to do about it, and that's the truth. I'm telling you.
Because they know the system.
So we wouldn't have never known if they talked to me. You know what I'm saying? So I asked the counselor, I said, she thinks that all she has to do is tell you color and y'all don't talk about anything. She said, yes, I'm building up trust.
Hey, finish up the thought.
The
You're
fact of it is, what if she had
speaking
killed
on,
us?
and
How
we'll
much
get back
color?
together.
Building up trust. Building up trust. Building up show you right. Okay, right.
That's just what you desire, and necessarily it's not.
It's a bigger issue to advocate for one's rights. But I like to email, make phone calls.
I've read a lot of as to read my resume and with children. I got family out.
I see that some people have long thoughts. Hey, we'll start again when you get quiet, so when you're through with your thought, you stop talking. And I know you're done.
That's what their record. Really. We're
Okay, I'm gonna cut off your thoughts. Okay, all you people back there with the how gap closers and Denise, I guess you can just pull it together, right? Sorry to call you out, but that's just the way it is. I like to ask a question. I'm calling you out. Yes, I'm going to call you out. They don't even notice that they're being called out here. I'd like to just ask if anybody in any of your conversation, and this, unfortunately, I'm not going to run around with the mic, so you can stand up and shout it out if you have a thought. In any of your conversation, did anything strike you? Or anything that stuck out to you in your conversation? Anybody?
That's not really.
That one back here?
We came to a conclusion that
Talk real loud.
we came to a conclusion that each of these advocacy statements required a level of knowledge and access to what the realities of the system are. What was very poignant to me was Jenny pointed out that oftentimes on these county websites, you don't have access to the policy that is, that mandates that county. And I didn't realize that. And I also saw that as a personal, an intentional barrier for some.
So somebody's saying that you have to know what the issues are if you're going to advocate for them. You have to know where the resources are to get them. And you have to know what your plan and practice is to push it forward. And that's all, that's not something we're taught in pre-service training. It's not something we're taught in ongoing training. It's one of those things that we have to figure out for ourselves at this point. So we want to help our state think about how to use our resources to help make things move forward. One of the things we know about the way the state is operating, I don't know if how many of you went to hear the state yesterday, but one of the things that we know the way they're operating right now, you've heard this word lived-in experience. You know, nationally and here in Ohio, everybody wants to hear lived-in experience. Now, I could have a dialogue with Georgetta, and she would be on a different point on this, but we all think that our experience that we come from is important to be on the table, to share so that people know what we need. But the way the state is throwing out this language, lived-in experience, it's almost like they just want a checkbox. Okay, we have people at the table, so therefore we've shared with them, and therefore whatever we do is okay. If you don't know what they're doing is not okay, because you don't have the knowledge base to know what that's going to mean for your role or for other roles within the family, then our advocacy is limited. So in order to push our advocacy forward, we have a lot of learning that we have to do about how the system works. I love that one, the ability to understand the system that you exist in. Some of us just go, I gotta even try, they're so complicated, they're so crazy, nothing seems to work out, so why would I try? But there is a method to their madness. And to understand that method so that you know how you can intersect in that method is part of what we have to do. Understand the method outside of my role. So if I'm a primary parent, I have to understand what foster parents are being told about me and how to help advocate for my own self and my own children in the midst of foster families who may think that my life is just not very good and therefore the children should come stay with me. If I'm a kinship parent and I have got that call in the middle of the night when the state said or the county said, if you don't come and pick up your child now, we're going to place him in foster care. And you know you don't want your child to get lost in foster care, so you run and you pick up the child. You bring the child home, you have no resources. And all of a sudden, your parent, who are the parent that you know that has you have their child in placement, is over here and you're over here, but there's nobody helping you help solve whatever the problem is that kept you apart or that you got the child from. It's all like, okay, let her do her thing, you take care of the child, and we'll see what happens. And we know that what happens is a lot of trauma for all of us. And if you come in at the foster care arena and you get this child in this place, and they said, won't you take this child, we got this baby. This is years ago, but I remember I had a 4-year-old going out the front door to adoption, and the phone rang, and the county said, I hear you have an opening. Well, yeah, just 2 minutes ago. We have a baby that he wants you to take because they're coming out of the hospital under drug addiction, and in those years, we didn't know what the outcome for kids who had been born heroin addicts would be, so we didn't have a path. And so they said, we have this baby, you've had some experience with fostering children with addiction when you lived in Washington, D.C. Would you take this baby? We said, sure. I said, when? be there in an hour. So that kind of, you don't know what you're getting into when that child comes at that point, but you also don't know what's going on with mom. You don't know what's going on with grandparents or other relatives, and you're not encouraged to find that out. Or you're not, maybe encouraged isn't the right word, but there's no pathway for you to find that out, to have that communication happening normally. And then if you've had the child for a long time and this side of the equation hasn't been able to be involved in any way, it's now 12 months and we want you to adopt the kid and think about permanency. So all of a sudden you who thought you were taking a child temporarily have a child for permanency. All of those issues are issues that as a unit, if you don't understand the whole spectrum, which includes, of course, caseworkers and judges and decision makers that are part of the family complex. If you don't understand that, you might get really fired in the belly and you go off to the legislature and I'm going to make this happen because this is going to be for the child of my own good. And the legislatures agree with you and they pass a law. Now everything's changed for everybody and it wasn't good for anybody except your child. So those kinds of issues just kind of crop up in the child welfare system on a very regular basis. So it is our role, our expectation of us, that we know this system so that we can help advocate on where those issues are falling down. We talk about the gap closers, their name is wonderful. Where are those gaps in the system that is that we're not paying attention to because we're stuck in our role? So we have to understand the system. Then the last one, which is one I really, really love, the ability to know when to challenge the system and how to do it. I'm not going to answer that one just simply because I'm not sure if I know. But I do know that it's an important element that we all have to think through is when is it important to raise the question that we have concerns about? When is it important that we have enough information about that to raise and pass that issue? So if I'm coming at it from a foster parent point of view and I'm angry because the kinship family didn't step up to the plate the way I wanted them to, so I take my case to the legislature and try to get kinship families boxed out of permanency. That doesn't work, but it has worked in a while in terms of those shifts that we've made in terms of what we've done, because as a unit, we haven't understood the complexity of why that issue is at the front end of the door. So that's what we're working on today, is some of those issues that you're going to pull out of yourselves. So the next question that I have for you, why is this important? Spend a moment talking with your crew, just a moment, then I want some answers to that question. Why is it important to do this?
In our role.
Our main goal is to see them be successful. But we have to get answers to these questions for the betterment of every child. That's why we here. We all want to see the children be better.
That's it. That's it.
When to tell them, how to tell them,
When you get 20 people in the room and 18 of them say we got this very same problem, it's now the time to challenge the system. You're going to get a common denominator. You know, like if all of us come to the table and be like, well, I give you the one that we probably all know about. We're tired of every system being on hold talking about it's COVID. Anytime you need an answer, well, that's all we gotta wait. You know, because of COVID, we don't got nobody working. Yeah, we all heard that. No matter what system. Remember y'all said we know all these systems. Every time you don't turn around and you say, okay, you're supposed to do this. Well, because of COVID, that's on hold. We owe you your IRS money. Well, it's on COVID, that's on hold. Oh, you got a foster kid that you have for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When is he going to get his court date or whatever? Well, because of COVID, it's on hold. Too much on hold for COVID. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. That's right.
Yeah, we got a kid that got to
Life
go
does
to
not
court.
stop.
They ain't going to court. Why? Well, it's on hold.
Right.
Because
Because
of
courts
COVID.
closed down. Right. Courts closed down. And so what happens to the child when?
Wait for him to get better. Why? It's on hold because of COVID.
We always work, but I know they held courts through the
Internet.
right,
Zoom or whatever.
because I went to some of those.
Still took forever. Right? Did it still take forever?
But they did it, even though some of the judges didn't know how to.
Right. They're not used to others doing it.
So I didn't feel so adept.
Oh, that's good.
Ooh, you got to get into that wrong word.
She didn't feel so bad about not knowing how to do it.
Okay.
How to do it either.
Tell me, why is this important to do? Anybody? Why is this important?
For the betterment of the child.
Not important?
For the child.
It's important for the child?
Yeah, for the betterment of the child.
For the betterment of the child? Okay, so we have one answer. Why is it important? Nobody has another answer to that?
Well, we also said the kids need it, but we also said policy needs to be driven by the people that live it.
Policy needs to be driven by the people that live it. Certainly. Another reason it's important?
Successful advocacy moves the needle.
If it's successful, you move the needle. Now, she didn't say you go around the clock, and I know all of us would like to go around that clock, but it is a tiny move sometimes, but every tiny move has ripples that goes into other kinds of things. And even though we might be feeling at times we are just in Georgetta in my mind, I'm just the grain of salt that is causing irritation in the committee that I'm sitting on. That grain of salt can move the needle if I know what I'm doing, or it can be squashed out if I don't know how to speak up appropriately in that setting. Whitney?
Well, and I also feel like at these tables where decisions are being made, everybody, or for the most part, people are overworked or, they're trying to simplify things and they don't have that interruption. And so things just kind of continue on this path of least resistance that may not be in the best interest or may not be taking into account how things are changing or a wide variety of issues. And so just being that question, that interruption to make them pause. Not necessarily making huge change, but just allowing for there to be a pause so that there's not just this continued wave that does the same old thing that might not work.
So being the interrupter that just causes people to think. Maybe not to change the policy with that set of thinking, but maybe the next time they come across that, oh, I've heard that before, and the next time they come across that, I've heard it again. When those of you in the room that are in the older edge of the table, well, recognize that in those days as foster parents, when we began, we were almost denied any access to primary families. We were not allowed to talk with them. In the old days, we were not allowed to adopt the children. That's changed. But there has been that path of disruption between family to family, and we're kind of programming our way out of that. We're not moving out of it by making interpersonal relationships with each other, but we're setting up programs that are supposed to help us get out of those situations. Now, for people who have lived an experience, the programs is only good if it works. So we got lots of money going into lots of programs to make a difference, but if the programs really don't work, if they really don't do what they say they are supposed to be doing, and we're the ones that know whether it works or not because it's our lives that are being affected, then really what are we doing except putting money into programming to keep people apart rather than keeping people working together? Amen. And I know that all of you in the room are very grateful that Jennifer is here today to say that we finally have an ombudsman's office where you can go and file your complaint or file the issue of what's going on with you. Now we've got to see whether they can make a difference, but we know that at least there's a place to start the process. So that is so important as we do this self-advocacy. One of the issues that was raised when the team was talking about during this workshop was that they sometimes feel like the system, and of course the system is made up of people, but we're going to take it generic as the system. The system kind of wants us to be in the dark, because if we're in the dark, we don't ask questions. If we are afraid of what might happen to the child in our care, if we raise an issue, we may just be quiet and let the system move on and not really challenge. And the one thing that we do know and that all of us must accept, and this is hard, this is really hard, but we have to know that in our current child welfare system, it penalizes people who speak up. It penalizes people who are assertive in their advocacy for an individual child or their advocacy for a parent. That's not what we want the system to be. But the current system in its override and in what is moving forward oftentimes penalize the person who speaks up. Jessa.
So, if we say the system wants us in the dark, are we indirectly saying the system wants something different than what we want?
I would say yes, but that's my opinion.
We have to get a what? We can't ever expect the system to be on our side.
Hey, man. So you can never get to that point, in other words, of being in tune with what else is going on.
They'll only let you get close to what you want. But overall, they're always saying, we're not doing that because that's not what we want.
Is the issue of power a part of that?
Absolutely. Power is part of that. The problem is that most of the people who sit at the table are not really familiar with what's going on outside of it. Mm-hmm. They don't have a clue. And they don't even want to have a clue. They want to keep their place in power. And that's why you got money, loads of money going into programs that absolutely do not work. Because those programs have been basically designed to do exactly that, not work. And so it's going to take people to buck the system collectively in order to change the system. And that's not just a problem with this system, that's a problem with our systems here in this country, period.
Amen.
And one thing I want to say, you cannot, and I'm going to repeat this, you cannot have healing until you deal with the truth. The truth of your situation, the truth of what's going on, Whatever that truth is, until you deal with that, you cannot have healing. All right?
Did everyone hear her?
Amen.
Amen. Or woman, or whatever. Thank you, thank you. I think that is a really insightful comment. That is really true.
Leslie, she got her hand up.
Leslie.
How my approach to a lot of these issues is the same approach that I teach my kids in the home. And that is leadership, people at the top, they have different goals than the people who are doing the work. So like even if you're looking at McDonald's, the leadership of McDonald's have totally different goals than the crew members of an individual chain. So if you want results at where you are, you have to show the leadership directly how you can benefit their goals, because they don't care about your struggles. They care about how you can make their goals be achieved. So there's a little bit of creativity that foster parents have to come up with that will show the state how, if this is your goal, I want to help you reach that goal, and this is what I need to help you reach that goal. Because they don't care about our individual household problems. They don't care about the individual kids. They really care. They say they do because they kind of have to say that, just because it's humanity. They kind of have to. But they put money is according to how their goals are set up. So when you really want true change, you have to convince the people who hold the purse. You have to show them how I'm going to help you reach your goals by doing this. So I need access to child care for all children 0 to 5 paid for. So that way we can get now these numbers, more foster care parents recruited. I can help you get more foster care parents recruited and hit your goal there by you just giving me this. So it's kind of like our approach really has to be, when we go to leadership to get things done, they don't really want to hear our sob stories. They just don't. I know that's a hard thing to say. They don't, because they'll let you talk that to death. They'll let you bleed all over their floor all day. But and they don't care. But what they care about is their goals. They care about what directly impacts them. So when you bring topics to them and issues to them, it has to be tied to their goals. You have to find out what their goals are, what their objectives are, and it has to be some sort of return on investment. There has to be numbers behind it. And so whatever your personal issues are, you have to link it back to what benefits the decision makers. It cannot be, nobody wants to hear about the realities of what we're going through daily. We hear about it because, we're all of like mind, but we don't hold the purse to anything. So if you really want to get to the pockets, you have to show them how you can make make them reach their goals. And that's really our strategy has to change. It has to be about hitting them, making it matter to them. Our sad stories don't matter to them. The individual stories of each individual child does not matter to them. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And you can tell by their actions that that's the truth. So I think strategy needs to be considered when we're going into making changes, for requesting policy changes, that it really we need to get their goals, and then we need to line up accordingly. That's just my opinion.
It's not just one
It's not just one person.
person.
It's
You're
many.
not the only person who needs child care for kids under 5.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the other thing is, if they can put the money in it, as I'm discovering in South Carolina, they'll pay for child care. There's no availability.
Right.
Is the problem. I have a half dozen foster. Okay, I just said that part of it is that letting them know that it's not just one family's issue, it's many families' issues. And then how does that impact the kids? Well, you know, I have a half dozen foster parents right now who can't take placement in South Carolina because they want to, there's no available childcare. State will pay for it, there's no slots.
Right.
So they can't take the kids. So what does that mean? Your kids are going all over the states, your staff is driving all over the states, overtime, mileage, kids are being hauled all over the state. So I think we have to kind of set the ripple effect of how that's not meeting their goal, because this happened, never going to meet your goal.
And see, once something like that is identified, now you go into creating more child care opportunities.
Right.
So now that becomes a new goal for the state. Benefiting, creating incentives to open up state-funded or state paid for foster children or children in care.
So many slots
Show
have to be
us.
available.
So let's find those retired people who used to do it, or people, and bring them now into becoming your child care providers. So that just created another goal. So you're identifying problems, and then see, this is how I teach my kids. Don't bring me your problems, because I have like, I'm doing too much. Bring me some opportunities that we can fix your problem. Now I want to talk to you, because I want to say, yeah, we can do that, or we can do this. So that's how I'm raising my children. Don't just bring me the problem.
Bring me the solution.
Bring me the solution. So I can help you fix your problem. So that's kind of, okay, so we've identified that we need more child care providers. So let's now put incentives in place to recruit more child care providers. So that's kind of, I think we kind of need to consider our strategy when it comes to policy changing.
Yes, definitely. We had a couple more people that had thoughts here.
Just to piggyback off her, I think the leadership
Can you
of
talk
power,
louder?
I think leadership of power to be have become robotic now. Because they're not passionate on what they started with. You can be passionate about something, then you get used to it, and then it just becomes that dollar sign. I don't really care, don't get this kid in a foster parent's home. I'm not gonna tell them the truth about the kid, but I just need them to fix that void. I tell kids when they come to me, you come in with issues, I got issues. We don't have to make a problem. So everybody has an issue, everybody does, but it doesn't have to be a problem. But if we all work together for one cause, we can fix some of those problems that they have before they even have them problems. All we gotta do is listen to the news today. Where did that come from? And who is doing it? It is not us, I'm 64, it's not my generation. But guess what? You got anybody in here under 26? It is that generation.
I'm more of a outside the box. I'm more of an outside the box thinker. So I think for hundreds of years we have been the same thing, where we've been trying to show them how bad it is, and we have been getting the very same thing. I think if we come from a reverse perspective, to get somebody who is in leadership to move, let's try and point to where their heart really is. I guarantee you, if we get to a place where we can point that the real heart of the people making decisions is not to see the betterment of kids, they'll move, because they would not want that to be exposed. That's, how do we do that? How do we expose the true heart of those who are making decisions?
Where they put their money at.
So that means we have to come collective and expose. This, because they're hiding behind that. They're hiding behind sheets. So us keep going to them saying, okay, we're going to show you this, we're going to show you that, is not going to cause a heart change. They know this already. We create a heart change when we expose to the whole world, this is the real agenda of them. Now they have to show us that that's not what they want.
That's not what they want.
Yeah.
An example, I asked the team if they would each share with you an example of advocacy that they have participated in or seen work. And I wanted to share one that goes along with your thought, not as quickly as perhaps my happen, but I for years have joined the state in different kinds of committees to say, let's work out this issue. The last committee that I sat on, there was a director of an agency on that committee. Bobbi was on that committee. And as I mentioned, I hadn't said anything. The director contributed to that committee to say, I hate to admit it, but I agree with Dot. And it wasn't even that I had said anything at that particular time, but what I had been saying along in this committee was being heard by one person. One person who after that quit his job as director and went to another resource to have some power. So I thoroughly agree with what both of you are saying, but I think it is a matter of showing up at the places where those decisions are being made in a way that we can push through the concepts that we're talking about. And I know that not everybody in the room agrees with that.
Right.
But I really think that there are some ways that we can do collectively. We have to be prepared for the pushback that comes with that, and whether we're strong enough to handle that pushback. And then there are ways that we can do it individually by pushing forward in different units. But I agree with what folks are saying in terms of those issues. It's our thinking through how, as OFCA, can we push forward these issues together so that the state hears what's really going on in child welfare. So that's the basic question. And I want to take just a moment now and ask each of our team members to step up and give an example. And I'm looking at Whitney first.
I know you are.
Because
I'm trying to think of what has worked right now.
What has worked?
Yeah. I think you should start with somebody else. I need a minute.
Before we do though, Dot, I do want to say that we have to be careful, because when we go into a room and sit in a room and something's not right, and we say it's not right, and the room still ignores us, and we still stay in the party, then we become part of what's not right. And so we have to get up sometime and say, that's not right, and we're going to walk out, and we're going to mobilize another way. Because it's easy to say we can try and change one, but changing one doesn't change the policy. The policy sometimes, we have seen over the course of the last 30, 40 years, the reason numbers are going up in foster care is because those people who make those decisions haven't listened to the people with lived experience. Because if they listened to people with lived experience, we wouldn't be having some of these issues that we're having today at these tables that people are talking about. So we've got to be very careful how we let people use our power, because they can only use it when we give it to them. And I just think that we are on opposite sides on that. I want my side to be heard too.
Amen. I agree with Ron, even though I speak a different language. But I do agree with Ron. And Georgetta is another one of our team members who also agrees with Ron in terms of those issues. And some of it comes with age, that we affect things differently depending upon our age and how much focus we have to give. Some of it also agrees with the culture that we come from. And those of us like myself who come out of the white culture, having been in power for so long, have to learn how to let that power be shared or go under the power over us in terms of that. So there are a lot of racial issues that are bound up in how we advocate for system change. And being one of those white folks who's been in control a great deal of the time, even though I might not think I'm in control because I don't work at the state and don't have all those roles, I do have a lot of power and a lot of control just by my body, just by my color, just by my experience. So sharing that together with each other is part of what this event is all about. How do we work across those cultural divides that divide our nation, that divides our child welfare system? How do we work across the family divides? How do, as foster families, we include primary families as the essential piece of what the role is? How do we include kinship families and support them in helping primary families keep their extended family together and healthy? Those are issues of advocacy that I feel are very strong that we need to think about. And I agree, you got to be prepared for the uptake that comes. I want to just take a minute and let the team talk, and then we'll go back to this conversation. Veronica doesn't know this, but I'm going to start with her. Hey, Veronica, come up here. Come up here, I'll help you with the processing. The reason I want to start with Veronica is I've not been in the session, so I don't know how Veronica has been introduced. But Veronica is a representative on our team for the primary parent arena in terms of having had her children in custody of Children's Services for a while. But Veronica also plays a very important and unique role in that she's a parent partner or a parent advocate at the Summit County Juvenile Court. So she works now with the families who are being brought into the court. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the advocacy role that happens in the court between you and the other court workers. Be honest as you can.
Okay, you know I will. Okay, I'm gonna sit so I can be wrong. I really don't like this stuff. But I'm gonna sit. Because this is, I feel that this is like the best honorary position to give the primary parent a voice, because I've lived it, I've experienced it, and I never thought that I would in my wildest imagination. From the background that I came from and the family that I came from, I never knew anything about it, number one, and I never had any issues to where I thought that I would need to be connected. I never thought that it would touch my life. So just to explain, I'm Veronica McNair. I am a parent advocate with a pilot new to Summit County, new to Ohio. I was the first parent advocate chosen and recommended by Summit County Children's Services and OFCA. Of course, after doing some volunteer work, facilitating support groups, I found myself being recommended to be an advocate in such an intimidating system, such as Summit County Juvenile Court, and work alongside an attorney and a social worker who provides resources that is appointed through the court. I am not a court employee, but I work for Greenleaf Family Center. Greenleaf Family Center provides peer support services, so I'm under that umbrella of peers. And I literally provide education, support, and really help the primary parents navigate through the system, because we have so many parents in our community that come through the system with this fixed mentality and this fixed stereotype of what Summit County Children's Services mission really is, what Summit County Juvenile Court, what their mission really is, and it's misconstrued. And I try to fix that as an advocate, and I try to impact the system by giving the primary parent a very strong voice in decision making, in processes, and give a lot of feedback. I find myself, being a part of their defense team, and I don't have to testify in court, so I can never be turned against that primary parent. I can never be used as a tool to destroy them or to derail their progress. Within the last year and a half in this position, I have worked alongside these, professional individuals. And I will tell you personally, I questioned myself, like, okay, what really qualifies me to be here? And I'm so uncomfortable. And this is me telling you just my personal experience. I'm like, so uncomfortable, I feel intimidated. There were times I had to pray, there were times I cried, like, this is too hard, like, okay, how do I do this? And And I had to figure it out, and I had to figure it out quickly because there was no training for this position. It was literally me answering a call, a mission, to empower parents to speak up, to tell the system you don't understand, to question the processes of things, to ask more questions and to be listened to. And I tell you, attorneys are saying, why didn't we have this before? Why haven't we done it this way? I mean, you have magistrates applauding, but yet they wonder my private conversations with the parent and how can they change so quickly and it be significant and it sticks and it's true progress. It's because they are walking alongside someone who has walked in their shoes, someone who has conquered the same case plan, the same objectives, the same obstacles, the same setbacks, the same pushback. And I tell you, I'm a very talkative, colorful, loving person, nurturing. I'm very motherly-like. I will take parents under my wing. I will tell them the bits and pieces of my story that I knew I found something in it. I knew I found tools. I knew I found a different perspective. I knew I found a way to collaborate with the system instead of pushing it back, rejecting it, and blaming it. And I mean, honestly, I was an overcomer. I was. And I felt that I was literally chosen for that. It wasn't like by chance. It wasn't like, I literally was like, okay, this has to be a God thing. And I know some people don't believe that, but I'm like, when I took this job, I knew I had a purpose. This was the only job I ever took where I was like, I know I'm making significant like waves in the water right now. And I'm overwhelmed at the feedback that we get from our magistrates, from our judge, Linda Teodosio, from social workers at Summit County Children's Services that are like, I want another case with Veronica on it. And they'll get cases that are insane. And it doesn't have to be alcohol, drug addiction. It doesn't have to be violence. It could be a simple mental health issue, which is what I dealt with. I had a complete, total mental psychotic break is what they called it, after a divorce and trying to be single, which I tell you, divorce and single are not the same thing. It is a hard thing that I wish upon no one, even if I don't like you. I will not wish that upon you. If you have a marriage that fails, you feel like a failure. You feel like you failed as a person. You feel worthless. You go through so many different emotions, depression, anxiety, bitterness, unforgiveness, just rage, okay? To be misled in a marriage, to be bamboozled, fooled, okay? I was married to someone who was abusive, that abused me through my whole entire pregnancy. I tried to hide it from my family, but of course they knew. I grew up in church, so I'm connected to this church, but I'm like, I can't tell you what I'm going through. So all you're gonna do is talk about me, you're not gonna help me, right? But only a few people from my church knew, and they were family members, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I need to get out of this relationship. You know, it's hurting the baby. I'm going to the doctor all the time, and they want me to report him, but I can't, because I'm like, what if I report him and I don't live? Dealing with suicidal thoughts, dealing with, do I want this baby? And it's just an honest thought. Do I want this baby? And I'm a first-time mother, and I always wanted to be a mom. I knew that I was gonna be a mom, even though I battled ovarian cysts, kept going back to the doctor from 16 to like 22, and they're like, you know, you may not be able to carry any children, and if you do, it's gonna be super hard on you. Like, they spoke that over me. And I had faith, and I was like, I'm gonna be a mom. I'm gonna be a mom, and it's gonna be great. But I had this mentality that was like, I'm ready to be married now. And I didn't want to wait. I was 23. I had a husband that was 12 years older than me, that didn't grow up in the church, that had a lot of street background, but you know, he gave his life over to the Lord, so we say, you know, we say that. And he poured all the beer down the sink. I watched him, you know, threw some cigarettes away, and he was like, I'm changing for the Lord, and you know, we're gonna be a family. And I was like, great. I was like, how many kids do you want? He was like, oh, 4. I was like, me too. You know, great, right? So I'm married to a person who's wearing like 12, 15 different masks, and I felt like I was like living this Lifetime movie that I was stuck in, and I'm like, can I say stop, cut, like rewrite the script, like it's not supposed to go this way. And I have this responsibility to this unborn child that I'm going to protect her, I'm going to love her. When I found out it was a girl, I was like, okay, I want this baby. Then I had moments that I was like, I don't want it. And then I was like, no, I need to fight through this. But when she got a name, and her name is Psalm, P-S-A-L-M, just like in the middle. When she was born a day late. She was born by C-section. I almost had a seizure when I had her. She actually, like, she was in distress. I forget, I don't know if the cords are wrapped around, I can't remember. And all 3 of my pregnancies after that were really horrible too. So I kind of mix them up sometimes. But the pregnancy was horrible. And I still chose not to leave. I went home with him. And I was like, I'm gonna make this work because God doesn't like divorce. Whoever said that, does that mean about, I don't think so. I didn't find it. I did some research, I didn't find it. I'm just letting y'all know, I didn't find that phrase. What I found was that he didn't design marriage to be split apart at some point. He didn't design for the man to go and get another wife or for the wife to go and get another man. He designed it to be a unit, to be a team. I'm supposed to be the helpmate. He's supposed to be the protector, the provider. We all know this, right? This is what we look for when we're dating. This is what we look for when we're looking for a spouse. This is what we pray for. This is what we wish for. This is what we look for. Yeah. So,
go back to your advocacy.
I'm sorry. Going back to that. Sorry, Doc. You know, it happens. It's happened all weekend. Sorry. Okay, so when I go back to all those things, sometimes I could get lost in it. That's true. I meet so many parents that need to hear that story. Because if I don't tell it, they don't think I'm real. If I don't tell it, if I don't go there, I can't advocate for them. I have to show them that I'm real. I have to be vulnerable enough to share the unshareable. I have to be vulnerable enough to say, I can't let this happen to you. I can't let you fail. I have to be the one that stands in the gap for them and say, listen, we may not have the same thing that got us on this road, but we do have other things in common. We can use the same tools to dig ourselves out of this situation and to grasp other opportunities for people to see that when a parent walks with another parent, miracles happen. Literally. When a parent is coached, mentored, tutored from a voice that they're familiar with, a voice of pain, a voice of suffering, and a voice of victory, they literally are like, let me change my mind. Let me consider what she's saying. Let me apply what she's saying. And at the end of the day, if they apply all that I'm saying and they use the resources from the program, they do reunify. We've had, I want to say 6 successfully reunify. We've had some sign off on legal custody. And the reason why I encourage legal custody for the parents that cannot get it together within the 2 years that the system gives them to get it together is because with legal custody, they can still stay involved. With legal custody, they can go to those doctor's appointments. They can still be connected to that person that they chose to turn over legal custody to. They can still build relationships. When they go for permanency, they're cut out of the scenario. They're cut out. And I feel that with that cutting, the identity that the child has is questionable. They don't know who they are. They have a lot of questions. And we all know that once they get out of the system, they go searching. And they want that missing piece. But with legal custody, I encourage that they keep that piece. Okay, sorry. So with advocacy, I just feel that the more we share our stories with the people that we know, we can get more foster parents. We can get people to open up more to kinship. We can get those numbers to decrease.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, you took all of her time, so. I love her, so she knows it. So, but I call everybody out, don't I? Myself included. So, we are at the end of the hour, if my watch is right. Is that close to the time here? So, so we're going to need to have our other team members share with you informally as they talk to you at lunch or as they talk with you this afternoon about some of the advocacy things that are happening around the state that they're involved in. In terms of OFCA's role, what we are participating to do today is to share with you this afternoon some of the formal groups that are doing some kinds of advocacy. They may or may not be in your ballpark. They may not be the things you'd like to hear, but we have three going. One will be the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition, and these are individuals and families who are working on the issue of kinship and how it gets established in Ohio, and what we do in terms of the category that kinship providers, whether they are formal or informal, meaning whether or not there's an open case in their family, or whether or not they've taken on the child and then cut off the system and are working informally with that child. Or, and that group will be meeting in one of the sessions. Public Children's Services Association of Ohio, which is the advocacy group that works with all the counties. They will be meeting, and their associate director, Scott Britton, will be joining us for lunch. So if you have a chance to sit with him at the table and find out more about what the public system is doing in changing the advocacy rates. And then the Ohio Children's Alliance, which is the advocacy group for the private systems. They will all have the three different sessions this afternoon. You have the opportunity to pick two of them. And so at this point, we're moving on into lunch, which is the same place it was yesterday. Ella has a...
Remember your last question?
Oh, I forgot about that. We have a problem that we didn't get to, so I'm going to do it this way. I want your table to go back for a moment and to pick someone at your table, anyone who's not a team. Can't pick one of the team members. Just have a few minutes of discussion and pick somebody at your table who we were going to have be a speaker, but you're not going to have to speak. So pick somebody at your table you'd like to have be a speaker, and then when you have that done, Ella has a gift for this. Whoops, I shouldn't tell you what she had, but I blew it. Think about who at your table you have really appreciated this discussion, and make that decision, and we'll be back. You've got 2 minutes to pick out somebody. You want to draw straws? That's okay.
All right.